I hope my voice is clear at this because I couldn't hear it. Good afternoon. My name is Jagannathan. I represent Deloitte, and I know you heard a previous session with a certain product and business transactional solutions. Now I'm more here to talk about finance and tax solutions that we provide to our clients. How many of you here are students or studying or finance professionals? And how many of you here from any business that you are running and then, okay. Just to get a feel of, because I don't want to go in subject which you may not understand sometimes. So in the finance and accounting journey, prior to that brief introduction, I've been with the finance and accounting domain for the last 2 decades, working on finance transformation, worked with multiple organizations. Primarily, we provide, Deloitte as an organization provides services in the space of taxation, auditors and consulting and all of these. This solution, what we are talking now here is more towards FinTax. We coined this as a solution primarily to join finance operations and taxation together to seamlessly create better efficiencies for business. Our clients from a business process solution standpoint. In the finance and accounting domain, there are 3 major towers people in the industry would know: procure to pay, order to cash, and record to report. And then having dealt with being a firm with a lot of taxation areas, we have that expertise across region and tax solutions. Now in the procure to pay, order to cash and record to report, if I may ask you, do you all see that there is a taxation element in those process at a transactional level or not? Can anyone answer? P2P, O2C are all transactional process areas, primarily procurement, purchase process, order, sales, cash cycles, right? So do we see a transactional tax element coming in there which can impact the downstream tax compliance process? Yes, you all agree? Now, it is very, very imperative and significant for any business to ensure that your transactional business project doing post-mortem work and spending more time and missing out deadlines, etc. downstream. So when I say that, for example, in the purchase to pay process or order to cash, you have the GST component coming in. From a direct taxation, you have TDS coming in. There are multiple components and variations within the tax, and for larger business houses where they have to go for tax audit toward the end of the year, they have to provide as per certain clauses, schedules of which all areas, vendors where you did not deduct tax and what category of them, and you have to provide those reasonings from a tax audit resolved. You will not be able to provide them on a timely manner. It will lead into multiple loops of chains of actions toward the end of the year or end of the quarter, and it also helps in your seamless filing of returns and with respect to GST, with respect to TDS and all of those, right? So the end suit taxation standpoint, whether you validate them at the master level or whether you validated them at a processing level or reporting level, so all of this is factored into our solution and we provide those. Now, when we provide these solutions, obviously technology is a key element that we need to consider. Again, it's evolving every now and then. Now, with customers who have larger ERPs and wanting to further enable them with opportunities to automate and efficiently run it, they may need an enabler technology coming in, or they may need an alternate technology as an ERP that needs to be come in. So we pitch in to our customers to go about, and one of them is also Odoo, where we are partnered and we actually created solutions which actually at the transactional level to the reporting level is all interconnected, and we were able to bring in solutions that are linked to our government portals to pull in data to reconcile upfront rather than doing it toward the end of the period. So this is our overall in-store, a lot of process functions that we do. I can take up any questions if you have end of the session. Invoice to pay, right from the vendor invoice we receive and till the time we account and then process, it's the cycle. Now, for that to happen, you should have a vendor master and you should know who the vendor is, whether he is a MSME vendor or whether he is whether he has got a PAN, and then whether he is have permission or allowance to have a reduced taxation, etc. Right? So all of these at a master level gets verified, and this validation many a times is manual and sometimes we miss, but it is something that we factor into our solutions to ensure at the upstream master level itself gets validated, because whenever you transact, it determines, it suggests, it throws, for us to be able to automate down the line in the process where currently we are trying to inject agentic AI as a bot for an invoice processor as a bot, which comes in and which are rule based. Again, as long as the data is set correct and fed in, the system actually processes rather than manual eye coming and doing a lot of stuff. So this is just an example I'm trying to say. So in this process, The tools and technology or ERP that you use, we have customized solutions, standard solutions and customized for specific businesses. So we ensure that it is all goes through that route, and also from a GST perspective, we also pull the data from the GSTN portal where your purchase invoices should match with your vendor invoices, which is the sales invoice number, right? So values all gets reconciled at the time of processing itself rather than a separate GST personal, tax personal sitting and pulling data end of the month and then reconciling it. So the real-time reconciliation happens, throughout happen, and then that gets reviewed and course corrected for us to be seamlessly filing our returns and reports. Now it also goes to the end of the chain for us to be able to automate our payment process, where many places we have evolved to a state where we tie up with banks, we upload our payment batch files that payment needs to be released, someone and you provide your authorization controls for you to release the payment. So end-to-end chain without having manual intervention, and all of this could be done just by an agentic AI. That's the future that we are looking at, and that's the kind of solution and model that we are going into. This is more from a order to cash standpoint, more an example where we were talking about a B2C scenario in the previous sessions. So here if you look at, you have multiple marketplaces. You all know Amazon, Flipkart and everything, right? So there is a seller who's selling his product in the marketplace. So which means he sells a product, sometimes there is a sales return, and the transaction from the end customer standpoint, I might get the money back as a refund, but the seller may not get the money adjusted in his transaction for some time. So he cannot real-time reconcile the cash inflow and returns that he has to account for. And this solution that we are looking at is primarily the tool and the application that we use actually takes in different sets of reports, primarily from the marketplace, primarily from the banks, primarily from the settlements report that you get, all of this into and then reconciles between your consolidated data and the settlement versus sales versus the bank versus settlement. So there's a two-way, three-way reconciliation that gets done. And then the accounting entries and the feeds goes into get integrated with your system. So this is again, once it is set as a seamless process, it will be able to fetch data from any source that you connect, and then an agentic AI bot can actually run all of this, just except for the exception that you get into. But this can be handled monotonously by any individual because it's very voluminous in nature. So you have to use Excel, Access, whatever it is. But a bot that coming in is a differentiated solution that can do real time with just one or two bots running thousands of volume. Tax from a qualitative data perspective and compliance perspective at transactional level is just an example where at the master level you mention specifically about which type of vendor, what amount of TDS percentage to be applied, and then if the vendor has a specific exception, that certificate that he had obtained wherein he is eligible for a lower deduction. So all of this gets tracked at the master level, which then when you actually process your invoices, automatically gets suggested, picked up, and then processed for a seamless output. Now, if all are coming and then checking manually to do, and there's a lot of errors that can go into, which then you will not be able to seamlessly prepare anything for your audits, returns, filings, and all of those, which goes into a lot of reconciliation process manually, and that leads into non-compliance from a deadline perspective. So this is the example that I was trying to say why we coined a solution FinTax overall together, and it's right from operational transactional flow connected to the taxation element to ensure compliance and reporting. This is all more functional broadly to give you an understanding, but I don't want to repeat much, but this is another example of, because as I was mentioning, there are clients where they might already into a certain ERP. They may need an alternate ERP, or they may need one module of a new ERP to facilitate some of their operations which are not being seamlessly running through in their existing process. Now, this Odoo as an example, when we actually consider P2P or invoice to pay solution, the elements in the middle that you see is all done through Odoo being the front end, and then the customers also can have an SAP or Oracle or any other ERP at the back end with larger ERP modules being used. It all interfaced between the front end transaction from finance and that is needed for us to process the invoice. So all of this users can be created. The front end system is very seamless, user friendly, much better than some of the larger ERPs and very flexible. And it comes at a certainly nominal cost. So it is a better choice for certain business houses which are small and not very large, and then does not have the appetite to have a robust implementation of larger ERPs. But alternatively, it's a combination, whatever works best for certain business, certain industry client. That is what we adopt, understanding their real problems and try and go with the solution. quickly, I'm still on time, right? Okay, this is now, whatever we spoke is all current and past that we have come. So now future is purely, I was indicating that agentic AI bot can actually run, right? So when we interact with our businesses about the solutions, we now go into AI solutions where there, instead of a human being deployed on a particular role, there is a payroll agent, invoice processing agent, AI, which is primarily AI bot is what we are talking. So instead of 20 people on invoice processing, goes and the agentic AI actually does all the processing, and the exceptions have to be looked by the human eye. That is the kind of solution that we're moving forward. Why we do, the challenges that we see is currently all of this is manual and it's all time consuming. And then you have a large set of data, sometimes to reconcile it becomes challenge from a reporting reconciliation standpoint. And the business benefit is obviously it becomes faster, accurate, and then more reliable down the line. And then obviously the technology is improved, so you'll be able to further streamline and then integrate, because there are future solutions that we are still discussing about integrating larger portals from, because even for GST we were able to pull, not every organization service provider is able to pull data, but Deloitte is able to pull data from the government portal prior to even going into the month end for us to reconcile on the GST. So this is more the future. We call it interoperability, because it has to interact between your purchase and the sales side, and then to the respective divisions and the % or less than 100%. But larger part can be automated, and that's the future that finance and accounting moving into in terms of bringing technology to leverage and automate the business process. So that's largely our solution and what we were trying to do. I can take any question and answer. Maybe some of you who are representing some of the business that you're currently doing, if you have any specific questions around that, but for anybody else who's new to this solution that I'm talking, feel free to ask me any questions. Did I go so fast that everybody is silent, or it is easier to understand? Yes.
For example, if there is a service charge bill of labor charges, and if there is a TDS that needs to be cut, so do I have to manually select the TDS? What is the percentage? Or
right? In your system, you need to have a master for these rates for certain categories XYZ. That has to be configured and kept. Once that is done, when you actually operate, today if somebody is manually processing an invoice, he has to choose the right taxation or the category, which can still be automated as a rule-based automation. That can be done. If not, currently if somebody is manually doing, that can be completely automated. The solution that we were talking is when we set the workflows itself, the masters will be enabled with such validations, and periodically they have to be refreshed. Basis that automatic processing can happen through the agents.
so masters will be pulled from the government portal?
No, I'm not talking about this master. It is your ERP where for each ERP, each module, you will have multiple masters as a database built, right? That masters have to be updated, some of which can be interlinked to some of.
Hi. In one of the slides, you mentioned that the IR can be fetched from the GST portal, and the system accounts for it, correct? Automatically.
You want to
is
see
that
it? Sorry.
In one of the slides, you have shown that the AI agent pulls up the invoice from the government portal.
Just for the GST, in fact, seller database information can be pulled from the portal if it is already accounted.
Right.
And then your data, when you process, you can reconcile upfront rather than wait for the month end to download both of them and reconcile.
Okay, so it can be done on a real-time basis, you are saying, is
Sorry?
it? It can be done on a real-time basis?
But we are
What happens if we don't get the
future.
invoice? I mean, can we still take the credit?
No, I'm
And
saying
proceed.
anyway you're going to do that reconciliation end of the period,
Yeah.
right? Whether we are moving into a direction where many of the business houses are starting to do it real time, okay? For example, like you, the other business party will want to also account their AR and purchases on real time basis without any backlog.
Right.
So as long as we move toward that direction, when it is becoming real time, the gap today could be not large as it was before, but
Today it's
tomorrow
40
it will
days,
become real time.
max 40
So
days.
when it becomes real time, it's a seamless automation that you will see.
Okay.
Hi. So like Deloitte operates in around more than 150 countries. So I just wanted to know that how does Deloitte ensure that?
Deloitte as a group is one, but we are individual member firms. Against each India there is a member firm, say Singapore there is a member firm, across the globe separate member firms. They regionally control the requirement from a compliance standpoint, taxation
No,
standpoint.
so like how this software, this software that you are
Software is more what you decide and configure, right? It is not standard and applies to the global process. No, the global platform is there. You would not even define that. So it is how you define the system with the input and the master. The process will take care of it after that.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, I'm good. All right. Thank you so much.